Please welcome to the stage the Director of the Developer Experience Team, Nigel Parker.
Here I am, awake and taking every chance I'm given.
Thank you, and welcome to TechEd. I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes teaching you how to be an impossible person. I'm going to talk about our strategy, I'm going to talk about your strategy, and I'm going to talk about the path to innovation. Vaughan Rosewell is the CEO of Vend. He talked about a concept of being an impossible person. He introduced this idea of the fact that we are all impossible people and that we can all do impossible things. I was inspired by his talk, and it got me thinking about the times in my life when I've been an impossible person. So, growing up on the shore, if you've been to Glenfield Pools, they've got a diving platform that's set up and it's 5 meters high. And I remember as a child, the relief that I'd feel when I went out to this diving platform and it was roped off and I wasn't able to jump off it. But then when it was open, I would climb up the ladders and I'd get to the edge of this dive platform and I'd look over and I'd look down, only to have my reptilian brain tell me it's not safe to jump. I spent 3 years climbing up that diving platform before I actually got the courage to jump off. But when I did jump off that diving platform, I was able to readjust my comfort zone and then jump off time and time again. So throughout my life, I've been doing that. I've been jumping off and readjusting as I go. But it's self-doubt that makes people say things are impossible. And that's simply not true. We are all impossible people. You need to know what the end looks like. And then once you have the end in mind, you can fold back from there. It's about having a strategy statement that is both directional and motivating, and one that challenges you and talks to you. In the early days of Microsoft, it was about having a computer on every desk in every home. Bill Gates is an impossible person. But as this group of technical people, we mustn't lose sight of the fact that nobody starts out being an expert. We all have to learn this behavior. And I want you to use your expertise to drive forward innovation. And I want you to treat it like an experiment where you can fail fast and create the opportunity to disrupt. Under Satya, Microsoft has a new strategy statement. And this is a vision that I believe in. As a father of 2 young girls, I see a world where my daughters don't have artificial barriers growing up, where they can see a future in technology or science. And with that, I'm very proud to invite to the stage Michelle Dickinson. Michelle is an impossible person with incredible superpowers, and she's recently gone on a secret mission up to Redmond to take apart the Surface Pro 3 and reassemble it. And I think the Surface Pro 3 is a device that's on the brink of disrupting the tablet market. So please welcome Michelle to the stage. Thank you.
Oh, Yoshime, they don't believe it, but you won't let those.
Yoshimi battles the pink robots. Hey guys, how are you? So I'm Michelle, as it says here. Tweet to me at Emmy Dickinson at Twitter. You'll find me as Nano Girl. But this is me. I'm a lover of technology and I'm a breaker of things. And it's been really interesting. So my job is a nanomechanical failure engineer. That means I break stuff for a career. I tend to break tiny stuff, but I'm not picky. And I do that here in New Zealand. I set up and built New Zealand's first and only nanomechanical testing lab. You're very welcome to come and break stuff with me. It's the only one of its type in Australasia. It's pretty cool. I can hear my earrings on this. Hold on. These are 3D printed, by the way. I'm just going to take one out. Yeah, uber geek. So this is what I do, and so I'm going to talk to you about breaking things. So what's really interesting is Microsoft came to me and said, hey, Michelle, you do nano stuff. We would love you to talk about nanotech and devices and gadgets and gizmos, and could you do that here at TechEd? I was like, oh, yeah, but here's a condition. Number 1, I want to know what your coolest gadget is right now, and number 2, I want to borrow it. And reluctantly, because people know my reputation, they were like, okay, we're going to give you this. So they gave me this thing. And you may have seen this before. This is a fancy schmancy Surface Pro 3. Lovely. So I did what I do best. I took it home and I bashed it around with some tools. And I wanted to see what was inside. So I took this bit off. I don't think it's that important. This is the optically bonded touchscreen. That's what it looks like on the other side. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm already in, so we may as well take out some bits and pieces in here. So let's see what we can do. Oh, look, wonder if this is useful. So this is actually all the electronics just on one board. I'll let you guys see that. Pretty cool. Pretty clever, too, how you can get so much tech just on one board here. And the rest of the space in here is for your 4 batteries. Gives it sort of 9 hours battery life. And I have tested that on long-haul flights. So I went beneath the surface because I figured if you want to know how something works, you might as well break it open and take a look. So I decided to go to Redmond and hunt down some people. And I hunted down 2 pretty awesome people, Pete and Ed, Senior Director of Product Engineering and Chief of Design for the Surface. Pretty much the Surface is their baby. They talked about it like it was their child. And we had an uber nerd out meeting, in which case we sat down together and we geeked it out on thermal coefficient expansions of different materials and what happens. We drooled over these CNC and 5-axis point drilling machines that give you the 3mm chamfer in the rounded corners. Basically, we just geeked it out for a whole day. And what you may see from this initial meeting is that I may have gone in slightly skeptical. Yes, I was taking notes on my iPad and taking pictures with my iPhone at Microsoft. So look, I like all sorts of technology. I'm not biased either way. And I went in with my Apple devices, and actually, I kind of liked what I saw in the box. And part of that is just hanging out with the people who invent this technology, because they taught me a few things about what's in there and what's nice to like about it. So I'm going to talk to you about, I guess, a few of the features that I really like from a design standpoint, from an engineer standpoint, and what I learned along the way. Now, I need you all to sort of do this with me. I understand you are not all martial artists, so we're going to do a little bit of martial arts 101. If you were going to perhaps hit somebody in the face, you have a couple of options, right? You can punch them, that's okay, old school. You can do this thing called the palm heel strike. It's almost lethal. Genius. Nigel, where are you? Love volunteers. So basically, if you hold up your palm and you tuck in your fingers like this, and you tuck in your thumb, because you don't want to break anything on your side of this, you'll see that your palm has actually a beautiful hard, come on, do it with me, you all know you want to do this. What you have is a really hard surface here that isn't very sensitive for your side, meaning that you can hit things with it pretty hard and it won't hurt you. So what we're going to do is we're going to teach you this palm heel strike. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Nigel, I'm just going to grab you so you don't go anywhere. And what you do with the palm heel strike is it doesn't need much power behind it, and you push underneath the chin of your opponent, and if you're lucky, their head snaps backwards, okay? But don't worry, because I know you're all beginners at this, so we can actually do this a different way. There's always a plan B with the palm heel strike, and that is because us humans have these amazing protrusions on our face called noses. So even if you miss the chin, it's fine, right? Because his nose is still there. So we can miss a chin, slide up his face, and still smash his nose. Thank you, Nigel. Smash his nose in the back of his head. That, my friends, is the palm heel strike. Now, once you know that strike, you need to know how to avoid it. And to avoid it, what you do is what's called the palm block. So the palm block is where you divert that energy away, and you push the momentum away from your face, and preferably you move your face out of the way. That's the palm block. So when somebody said, hey, the Surface thing, it's got like this palm block technology, I was imagining punching people in the face. Apparently, it's nothing like that. So palm block technology in the Surface Pro is actually a feature that I really started to like. When you have had a stylus or a touch screen before, I don't know if you've been very sensitive with it, but I've always been petrified that if I touch it with any other part of my body, it's going to press on something bad, right? It's going to screw something up. Palm block technology actually is a software component that recognizes the surface area. So it can tell the difference to whether I'm touching it with a stylus, whether I'm touching it with my finger, or whether I'm touching it with my palm. And so with palm block, I can rest my whole palm on the screen and it doesn't affect it. And I can still, this is really clever, I can still use my finger, even though the rest of my palm is touching it, and it doesn't interfere with it. So that means I can write just like I have a pen and paper, and lean my wrist on the screen. And those of you who've had styluses before know what it's like, right? Because you dare not touch anything, so you start writing at this funny angle. I don't know about you, but I drop stuff all the time, okay? I can't tell you how many things I've smashed. Really good at dropping stuff. Dropping people is good. In martial arts, if you throw them off balance, use their momentum against them, you end up on top. That's always a winner. However, you're going to drop your device. You do this panic face, right, where you're actually not sure what will happen. So I was like, all right, let's do this. And what you see is because it's made from magnesium, we've done this with a high-speed camera, and you've got the flexibility of the Gorilla Glass, it bounces. Yes. Better than bouncing, it leaves a dent in the table, and I think that's awesome, because you know I've been here when there's dents in the table. So dropping things is pretty good, too. And finally, just having a little bit of a chill out. So it gets pretty hot in here, and we have laptop capabilities in a tablet-sized form. How on earth have they managed to do that? Well, if we crack it open, what we'll see is they have this pretty unique fan. It's this thin, it's teeny, custom designed. But better than this are these, what I call the worms. They're not really worms. They look like little thin worms. Inside these copper pipes is water. There's freaking water inside of here. Totally nuts. So water cooling pipes. And what happens is inside this is the hole. It has a little bit of wicking fabric. This is hot, so water turns to vapor. Vapor transfers along here, cools down, turns into liquid. Liquid flows back. Genius. In a device this thin. So you can come and look at these later, but they're like little flat worms, and inside is a whole bunch of cooling technology. And the fins are polymer and copper, and they're really quiet, so when I have it on, you won't be able to hear it. Pretty cool to have a fan in a tablet equivalent device with laptop capabilities. And so that is how the system cools down. And with that, hopefully you've enjoyed coming on my little journey of butt kicking, lots of kicking, palm healing, surviving Nigel trip beneath the surface. Thank you.
From beneath the surface, we're heading up into the clouds. Please welcome the head of strategy for the cloud and enterprise team at Microsoft, Stephen Martin.
Oh! Who's that I see walking in these woods? Why, it's Little Red Riding Hood. Hey there, Little Red Riding Hood. You sure are looking good. You're everything a big bad wolf could want. Listen to me, Little Red Riding Hood. I don't think little big girls should go walking in these spooky old woods alone. Oh, Little Red Riding Hood, you sure are looking good. You're everything a big bad wolf could want. Oh, I mean bad.
So I've been fortunate to travel all over the world, but this is my first time to be in New Zealand. So I want to thank you very much for having me here. This is great. And it is a very, very fascinating space that we work in right now. And the first thing that we would say is, well, if you're going to predict the future, then first check yourself on how good you would have predicted where we are right now. So go back to, say, 2005, 2006, get a little time machine, and let's see how well you would have done. Number one, an e-tailer takes the early lead in cloud computing. So 2005, would anybody have said that? Probably not. And here's something that you might be surprised that I'm going to say. We really do tip our hat to the work that Amazon has done. We really do. Competition is amazing. Think about it this way. You have an entire organization of people that every day, every night, every weekend, all we think about is how we can do a better job than our competitor at meeting the needs of the market and our customers. It's all we do. It drives the price down. It keeps innovation up. So we are thrilled to see this level of competition. Number two, some of the biggest IT players in the space are on the sidelines. Now, they talk a big game, plenty of press releases, but some of the folks that we compete with and we see in the market every day haven't invested a whole lot in cloud computing. And we think this is the place not to bury your head in the sand. This is real. This internet thing is here to stick. This cloud thing is here to stay. And so it's time to get serious and make sure that we're truly invested for the future. Next thing, since we started down this path, the top two players in this space, have cut prices over 60 times. Over 60 times, and there will be more, right? The innovation pace will continue to go up, prices will continue to go down. Here's probably the best prediction for you. Microsoft runs Linux. We offer Oracle and SAP images. We run Java as well, and we're partners with Salesforce. This is a very different Microsoft than you would have expected or seen a few years ago, and I'm here to tell you this is only the beginning. The top 2 cloud providers in this space deliver more x86 server capacity than the planet used in 2007. 2007, not that long ago, right? And this is continuing to go up. It's going up every single day as thousands and thousands of additional cores go into the cloud. More data is stored in a single Microsoft data center than has been recorded, physically recorded in the history of mankind. IT budgets are roughly keeping up with inflation. In fact, if you study this, you know that IT budgets correlate almost precisely to GDP. 0.96 correlation between the two. They go up with inflation every year. But compute demand is doubling every 6 to 9 months. You don't have to have a PhD in economics to understand that something has got to give. Budgets can't stay relatively flat or slightly increasing, and computation demand is going up without the economics changing, which is exactly what's happening. So how did we get here? Well, we got here through a variety of things, some of it intentional, but like the best journeys, the best discoveries were not always intentional. You didn't set out to discover the thing that you found. And some of the disruptors in the space over the last few years helped pave the way to get where we are, and some of them actually might have wished that they hadn't. Between 2002 and 2009, we saw some very interesting things happen. Most important was the rise of virtualization. And as it works out, one of the most disruptive technologists out there, VMware, who did so much to pave the way for virtualization, ultimately contributed in a significant way to helping people move to the cloud, although they didn't necessarily know it at the time. Instances, virtual instances in 2007 crossed over, right, and continued to explode. In fact, within one more year, we had 3 times as many virtual instances as we had physical. So it's clear customers were starting to get more and more comfortable with the break between the physical and not necessarily knowing where that instance was. In 2009, we had a series of events that might have been seemingly unrelated that collided together to really propel us to where we are today. First, the virtualization rate approaches almost 30%, with the majority of new server shipments being shipped were virtualized. The second, bring your own device continues to explode. Organizations are now dealing with lots and lots and lots of heterogeneity across their organization that they're charged to deal with. Mobile and app economy allows organizations to think cloud first, right? And so we had our first generation of startups that were banking on cloud as their entry point for technology. And then the most important, the credit crisis of 2008. Who would have guessed that a financial meltdown actually contributed significantly to cloud computing? Is another data point. We put in over 20 data centers in the last 12 months. We'll do another 20 in the next 12. Microsoft will invest over $2 billion in infrastructure to support net new growth for cloud computing, and just in the next 12 months. We also agree, by and large, that this is a hybrid world. I haven't met too many customers that say that they're ready just to whole-scale get out of their data center entirely, right? We still want to get as much value out of that existing asset that we possibly can. And many organizations are saying there's certain workloads that I'm going to retain within my 4 walls indefinitely. I have absolutely no plans to move certain workloads to the cloud. So the next 5 years. Now, it is hard staring into the crystal ball trying to see what the future is going to hold. But based on our history and based on what we see today, based on this wealth of knowledge, there are a few patterns that emerge. Number one, we see a shift to higher level services. Think back to an opportunity where your business said, hey, we might have an opportunity to capitalize on something over the next 3 months. Think about all the IT challenges associated with that. Would you create a new business to go pursue something that only had a duration of 3 months? Probably not, right? Think about the IT systems, the billing systems, all the work that would need to do to be able to do that. Now let's look at what we did with NBC in the last Olympics. For a 6-week period, we broadcast live every event from the Olympics, both streamed live as well as available on demand for a variety of devices, on the phone, on the iPad, PC, other desktops. If you can, in a browser, if you can imagine, we distributed across a lot of different endpoints all over the world. And it scaled. And the beauty of it is, at the end of that, did NBC sell the servers? Did they sell all the equipment? No, they just flipped the switch and moved on to their next project. All of the technology that was created for that was disposable, right? Because the economics were right, the technology was relatively easy to deploy. They were able to do something truly incredible that just years ago wouldn't have been possible thanks to higher level services. The next thing we think is really important is innovation, commoditization, and standardization. And it's important to get that order right. We have a lot of pressure right now for standardization before the market has even chosen who the winners and losers are. If we'll continue to follow this path of allowing those wildflowers to grow, embracing the innovation even before it's completely standardized, you'll have more opportunities. Any organization that waits for ubiquitous standardization before you move into a technology space, the thing I can tell you the best you're ever going to be in your market is number 2, right? And so we'd encourage customers to embrace that. Number 3, the real security battle is internal. The vast majority of fraud is internal, not external. So we would caution customers to think really, really, really hard about your internal security practices. Innovation will accelerate and prices will continue to drop. Bet on it. Bet on it. I'll talk about every single one of these in detail now. Right? No, I won't. This is just a list of the innovation that's come out of the Azure side over the last 15 months. Just over the last 15 months. And this will continue to get faster and faster and faster. The beauty of services is we can put things in the market, we can test them, we can get real-time feedback, we can make changes super, super, super fast. So bet on that innovation cycle continuing to grow. And take bets on some of these pieces of technology that you think will help you. Prices are going to continue to drop. The reason why this is particularly important, 2 things. One, from a business strategy perspective, you got to ask yourself the question, hey, we're in a race to zero. What happens when we get to 0? What happens then? Like, that's when it really gets interesting, is what happens when we get to 0. But even more to the point, compute prices, by and large, most customers are paying about 7 cents US per core hour today, right? What would you do in your organization when those prices got down to 5 or 4 or 3? Do you think about the workloads that you would move to the cloud? Do you think about things that you can't even do today because it's not really cost effective that you could do if the price got low enough? So I'd ask you, when you're building the fancy spreadsheets that do the cost effectiveness analysis of use of cloud, make sure that that price of core is a variable, because it's absolutely going to move. It will continue to move. It's about half of what it was when we started down this path. Storage is also getting cheap. We have a variety of customers that are doing things now that just weren't even possible a few years ago. And so think through the things that you would do with machine learning, with analytics, with video ingesting, as the prices of some of these services continue to get really cheap. Next thing, the industry is going to consolidate it. That's not wishful thinking. It's just the reality of the economics involved. It's going to happen. This is a business that is incredibly capital intensive. Organizations that want to get involved in this business need to be able to spend not even hundreds of millions of dollars, not even billions of dollars, but ultimately tens of billions of dollars to do global build-outs. There's just not that many companies on the planet that have enough free cash flow to be able to do that. And so think hard about the providers in this space. This is not a side business for Microsoft. Like, cloud is the future. Like, there is no plan B for us. We don't get the privilege of going back and saying, hey, that was an experiment, it didn't work particularly well, I guess we'll go back to selling books, right? This is the only way that we continue. This is the natural evolution of technology, and if we want to continue to have relationships with our enterprise customers, we have to be successful in this space, and we're committed to invest to do that. So a few things that I'll leave you with as we move forward. Number 1, let the wildflowers bloom. There is plenty of value that can be realized today. Think about the Olympics example. Think about all of these higher level services that you can take advantage of. You don't have to necessarily wait for complete commoditization or standardization to take advantage of these. There's lots of high value services there. Number 2, rethink your technology event horizon. Rethink it. Think about what you could do with a technology deployment for something that was only going to run 2 weeks. Think about something that was completely disposable, where you needed technology to back you up, and cloud is a viable answer to be able to do that. 2, the disruptor of today is the disruptor of tomorrow. Whether you paved the way from point A to point B and you weren't particularly happy about that, there's no putting the toothpaste back in the tube. And so expect continued disruption over the next 10 years. That is going to be a constant. Next thing that I would say, re-index your investment on internal versus external. External is important, don't get me wrong. But if you're thinking about load balancing those things, I'd spend $3 for internal security for every dollar I spend on external security. All right, with that, I want to really hope that you guys have a great week at TechEd, and I'll hand it off to our next presenter. Thank you.
It's very exciting hearing what is coming next for the cloud. Now we are in for a treat with our final speaker. He's a distinguished tech evangelist at Microsoft, known for his visionary leadership and passion for engineering practices. He's here to talk about the data economy. A big round of applause as we welcome to the stage James Whittaker.
Guess what? This talk's going to be a little different. Data is the new oil. Data is the new industrial revolution. And just like the industrial revolution, this data economy that is emerging is going to change things. It's going to change the way we live. It's going to change the way we work. And you got to start getting ahead of it now. Because data is, first and foremost, wealth. Look at the companies that control data. Look at the companies who control data that isn't even theirs. It doesn't even belong to them. All of you all give it to them for free. They're worth billions and billions of dollars because they are the masters of data. What can you do to master data? We're going to talk about that. It's power. We don't even need to hold presidential elections anymore. We already know who's going to win. 2 researchers, Nate Silver and David Rothschild, separately predicted the last American presidential election in February. The election's held in November, and they nailed it. County by county, state by state, they nailed it. We didn't even need to go to the polls. You don't think data is important? It's important. It's determining the leaders of the free world. Be nice to us. We're Americans. We will bring democracy to your country if you're not. Trophies. We play this game. Hey, a New Zealander mentioned baseball earlier. How cool is that? We have another game that the rest of the world doesn't play too, and it's called basketball. And the last basketball NBA championships, a team won that shouldn't have won. It was like my pub soccer team playing Real Madrid. It was like the American rugby team playing the All Blacks, right? We know what the outcome is going to be, but the underdog won, and they won because of data. Basketball is the most data-driven sport on this planet. There are cameras that track players' every movement. There are sensors in the shoes. We know exactly where you are. We know how far you've run. We know how fast you sprint. We know where you shoot from. We know where you make it. We know where you miss it. And the San Antonio Spurs took that data, and they marked Dwayne Wade. He's like the Cristiano Ronaldo of basketball, right? Marked him out of the game based on data. They won based on data. It's going to happen over and over and over again. Data is wealth. Data is power. Data wins trophies. Data's big. Stephen talked about how much data is stored in Microsoft data centers. And we are now generating more data than that every single day. From the history of mankind all the way up to 2003, we generated some 500 billion gigabytes of data. We're doing that now in less than a day, every single day. And every day, we do it a little bit faster, just a little bit faster. And wait until the Internet of Things comes around when your toaster is generating data and your refrigerator is generating data. It's going to be big. It's already really big. So what do we do to master this? That's what we're going to talk about. Because we have two tools right now, two tools that we use to master data. We have a browser, which basically hasn't changed in 20 years. Go on, fire up Netscape Navigator in 1994. You get a text box, and you type into the text box, and you hit enter, and it gives you back 10 links. Whoa. Wait a minute, it's 2014 now, so fire up Google Chrome, and what do you get? You get a text box. And what do you do to the text box? You type in the text box, and you hit enter, and you get 10 links. Holy shit, 10 years, and this is it? I waited for this. And then those 10 links look like this. This isn't data, this is a popularity contest, just like high school. You're either popular because you're cute, or you're rich enough to, we'll call you cute. And then this happened. Biggest innovation in data and the biggest innovation in the web since Netscape Navigator. The App Store, because Steve Jobs had an insight. We shouldn't remember Steve for the iDevices. We should remember Steve for the App Store, because he had an insight, and we're going to use this insight again. His insight was, no one ever needs the web. No one ever needs all of the web. You need a piece of the web, because you go to a browser with a task in mind. You go to a browser with a need. You go to a browser because you need a recipe, or you need to look up a rugby score. Boy, what a great sport that is. What a badass sport. I was trying to get it in my head. It's like soccer is a gentleman's sport played by thugs. Rugby's a thug sport played by gentlemen. I mean, how cool is that? And so that was his insight. You don't need all the web. You only need a piece of it. If you only want rugby scores, you only need a piece of the web that has to do with rugby scores. So why not build an app that masters that small piece of the web and that proactively goes out and gets those scores and brings them to you? That's the App Store. Brilliant, wonderful stuff. But the App Store, even though that, I'm going to steal that idea, by the way, in a minute, but it has a fatal flaw. Because in the App Store, there are zombies. There are. Hey, don't laugh at zombies. Zombies are real. Remember all those freaking vampire movies a couple years ago? Made all that shit up. Vampires aren't real, but zombies are real. We have created the virus in laboratory conditions that makes this condition. Zombies are real, and that's why this movie is the best movie ever. Because it's got zombies, and man, you need to watch this stuff. It's coming. I'm coming to New Zealand because I'm thinking, you know, there's only, what, 4 or 5 million people here? I think I can take that many zombies. But what makes this movie the best movie ever is it's a perfect date night movie. Because not only does it have zombies, it's got Brad Pitt. Right? And my date heard that there was a shirtless scene in here. And so she's like, oh, let's go see World War Z. Oh, sorry, World War Z. Let's go see World War Z. And I thought, you want to see a zombie movie? My God, I've got great, excellent taste in women. And so we went to this movie, and we're sitting there, and I'm like, oh, zombies. And she's like, oh, Brad Pitt. And I'm like, oh, zombies. And she's like, oh, Brad Pitt. But halfway through the movie, she pulls out her cell phone, and she's looking at her cell phone, and she's glancing, Brad Pitt, cell phone, Brad, cell phone, cell phone. And then I hear her mumbling. She's counting. 5, 4, 3. She taps me on the knee and she said, I'll be right back. And she leaves, and I'm thinking, you just left the movie. I mean, he hasn't taken his shirt off yet. What's wrong with you? Now I'm seriously second guessing my taste in women. And it was a minute, it's 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, and she comes back and she sits down and she starts watching the movie again. That's not what you're supposed to do. You leave the movie theater, you're supposed to come back and you're supposed to say, hey, did I miss anything? And she didn't say, hey, did I miss anything? So I thought, I'll be proactive. And I said, hey, you didn't miss anything. And she said, and I quote, I know. Because she has an app that tells her when to pee at the movies. clearly, there really is an app for everything. Now, here I am in the movie, and I'm thinking, she's got an app that tells her when to pee at the movies. Brilliant. And then a guy gets up 4 rows, and he runs out, and I'm thinking, he ain't got the app. And then a girl gets up, and she runs out, and thinking, she ain't got the app. I mean, how many of you all go to the movies? Just raise your hand. How many of you all go to the movies? Everybody. How many of you have this app? Does anybody have this app? You have this app. Michelle has this app. Somebody always has this app. This is what's wrong with apps. Why don't we have it? You see, apps are nouns. We have to chase apps around. I bet every single one of you all have an app on your phone that someone else in this room doesn't have but could use. We all do. We all have different sets of apps because we have to go find them. And there's this massive app discoverability problem. I didn't know there was an app to pee. And man, with my little bladder, God, I need this app. And it was causing fights. The guy would come back and he said, what happens? And she's like, shut up, Brad Pitt, you idiot. I'll turn into a zombie. And so this is the problem. Apps aren't good enough because we can't find them. The web is hiding all this good information from us. How do we respect data? How do we do something that treats data a little bit better? How do we tame it? Well, first thing we need to do is our devices need to start living up to their adjectives. We call them smartphones. When do I pee at the movies? Oh, not smart enough to figure that out. It is smart enough to figure it out. My cell phone is capable of geolocating me to a 10-foot or so radius. It knows where I am. What, you never thought to like look up the address? You got the lat longs, convert it to an address. Oh, James is in a movie theater. Oh, duh. You're getting a little bit smarter. Wait a minute, James is on the 3rd floor of this movie theater. He's at this exact location. Turns out there's a map of the movie theater online. And there's a list of all the movies that are playing online. Hey, James is watching World War Z. Except it would say Z because it's an American phone. You all, don't just talk like the Brits. You know, get over that stuff. They were gone a long time ago. See, the mistake that all the other former colonies made is you didn't throw those buggers out. You just waited for them to leave. See, I'm just trying to help. So our devices can get a lot better. And then the device can say, okay, he's watching World War Z. I'm going to go up into the apps. I'm going to go up into the cloud, into Azure, crack open all the little apps that are up there that have anything to do with this movie or the people in this movie or anything else. And that's where the piss comes in. Right? Now all of a sudden, my phone can say, oh, wait, just 2 minutes. Give it 2 minutes. 2 minutes. And there you have it. Secondly, we need these apps to be verbs. I don't need to go out hunting for the noun. Who cares if I have a set of bits on here that says, oh, this is the RunP app. Here you are. Click it. All I want is the functionality. I don't want the noun part of the app. I want the verb part of the app. So give it to me. Apps can be verbs. The Internet of Things. I have the first hot tub that's on the Internet of Things. I've wired my hot tub, and my hot tub is pissed. It is the angriest hot tub I've ever seen in my life. Because I have this discussion with it. I'm like, dude, you're the first hot tub on the Internet of Things. And it's like, piss off, man. I like the good old days when you did all that shit, James. You used to test my water, and you used to drive around and find chemical stores and buy the chemicals, and you used to take care of me. You used to call the repairman. I didn't have to do all that shit. Now I got my hot tub doing it all. I've got water quality sensors in it, and it knows now when the chemicals need to be changed. It knows its acidity. It knows its alkalinity. It knows how much more bromine it needs. It knows how to do this stuff. It can open and close its lid, right? It's on the Internet of Things, and it's got Wi-Fi. It's got Wi-Fi. It can contact my chemical. In fact, it can even negotiate. It can check prices at different places. Oh, there's the best deal for chemicals. And if there are other hot tubs on the Internet of Things, they could talk, right? They could say, dude, where are you getting your chemicals? And the other hot tub could say, oh, man, I got a sweet deal on bromine. It's the best stuff, right? And they can even track data better than we can, right? They may, one hot tub say, you know, this bromine here, it's a little more expensive, but my water quality stays up for 8 straight days, whereas that cheap shit only gives me 2 or 3, right? They're smarter than we are, the machines, man. The hot tubs are going to take over, because they can do a better job of managing all this data than we can, and we should let them. We should let them. There is a time in the very near future where there will be more traffic on the internet from machines that's not human generated and not human consumed. That's machine generated and machine consumed. And that day is coming really, really fast. And then I want to talk about this for a while. Super apps. What the hell is a super app? Look, if we can build an economy around an app store, if we can build an economy around the web, why can't we build an economy around the apps that we use every single day? What if we could build an economy around, I don't know, an IDE? Visual Studio, say, just picking one at random. Cortana, help me with this code. And Cortana would look at the code and say, James, you were right. There are better programmers out there than you. And it would look at that code and say, oh, you're trying to read a file line by line. So here's some code that we found out on the web. But this is what Visual Studio has done. It has taken the Bing code index, and it has direct access to it. All the code that's ever been written and indexed that we have access to. Now, right now, it's all the free code, all the unencumbered code. We'll copy it into your program, and then we'll even change the variable names based on your declarations instead of the one we stole the code from. My boss thinks I'm a genius. He's like, how'd you code that so fast? And I thought, if you only knew. He doesn't know about this feature. I'm not going to tell him. So there's but you could see an economy around this too. You could see money to be made. If you're a really good programmer, you write the programs that work, that you know are in every single people's pieces of code. And Visual Studio will make sure that code gets where it needs to be and that you get paid for it. Because there's value in this. This is going to draw coders to Visual Studio. Visual Studio is going to have more money, and they'll be able to share that out with the people who contribute. It's a data economy. It's not about apps. It's not about the web. It's not about browsers. There's no advertising involved in this data economy at all. How do you advertise to a machine? My hot tub doesn't give a shit. Oh, look, there's a little dancing bear. I don't care. I just want the bromine, man. Email. Why don't we have a data economy around email? This is an email from my daughter. I can't even look at this without cringing. That's not my daughter. That's the daughter that Microsoft Legal gave me. They did because I said, oh, I'm going to show this slide in New Zealand. And they're like, oh, well, you shouldn't use your daughter's name or picture. She's a blonde Bailey. And she comes back as a brunette Jennifer. And I said, why? My daughter's a teenager. She's a minor. She does what she's told, right? And they're like, oh, but James, her privacy. We're concerned about her privacy. And I said, have you seen her Facebook page? She doesn't give a shit about her privacy. But she sends me this email, and there should be a data economy around this email because this email worries me. It says, Dad, one of my favorite bands of Monsters and Men is coming to the Paramount Theater in May. Will you take me? Now, my first reaction is, this is awesome. Right? My teenage daughter wants to go hang out with her old man. How cool is that? But then I realize, oh, my God, I'm going to discover her taste in music. What if it's somebody named Justin? I don't know if I could live with myself if I put a human being on this earth and they bought tickets to a Justin. I don't care what your last name is, Bieber, Timberlake, shut up! Not interested. of Monsters and Men. What kind of name is that for a band? I'm from Seattle. We name our bands Alice in Chains, right? Badass names. There you go. Monsters and Men, my ass. So, I got to find out this Monsters and Men, right? But instead of going to the web, instead of going to the App Store, it's the email data economy. I say, hey, Cortana, what can you do to help me with this email? And Cortana says, Bing knows about this band and they know about the venue. They've both been searched for before. They're both in the index. So I'm thinking, okay, awesome. Tell me about the band. And there's the band. That's everything from monstersandmen.com, their Twitter feed, their Wikipedia page, everything that we've got in our index. And everything you could do with this band. You can buy their music, you can listen to their music, and it's all there. I didn't have to go out and plow through a bunch of ads on the web in order to see this. I didn't have to go sort through the iTunes store or the App Store and try to find their music. It came to me. See, that's the power of the data economy. The people with the data want to give it to you. They don't want the browser as a middleman. They don't want the App Store as a middleman. Wherever you are and you're looking for data that we've got, we want to get it to you. And then I listen to the band. And I'm thinking, that's not Justin. He can't play like that. And then I hear this. Oh, listen to this woman's voice. It's like Janis Joplin and Chrissie Hynde have somehow been genetically, vocally merged into this Icelandic queen. She's from Iceland. Did you know there were people there? And he can't sing worth a shit, but it doesn't matter at this point, man. I'm listening to this, and I'm proposing marriage through the screen. And I'm so proud of my daughter for liking something that sounds like this. Wow. I'm going to this concert. Now the question is the little chick coming with me or am I going by myself? Because there's this Paramount Theater thing. We did this thing in Washington. Don't tell anybody. We legalized marijuana. And it's like Little Amsterdam, man. All the red lights turn on. What is it? I thought it made you hungry. I didn't know. Right? So our downtown got really interesting really quick. So now the question is, am I going by myself or am I taking her with me? Because I don't want to be in those places with my teenage daughter. So click on Paramount Theater, and there's its entity card. That's all the data we have. I haven't taken the web away. I'm not killing the web. I'm just taking the data and bringing it to you instead of you having to go to it. I'm not killing the App Store. What I'm doing is I'm going into the App Store, cracking those apps open, pulling the functionality out, and giving it to you where you are now. That's the new data economy. Data directly delivered to the people who want it, where we want it. And so my daughter and I went to this concert, and it was really awesome. Now, when you think about data economies, think about take an app and ask yourself the question, what do people do in this app? What data might they need in this app? And this is Outlook Calendar. What data might people need in a calendar? What do people do? One of the things that people do when they look at their calendar is they ask questions like, when can I do X? Let me see. Let me page through my calendar and figure out when I've got a week that I could, say, go to Hawaii. Okay, how about that week right there? That's a good week, that middle week in May. Not much going on. I'll go to Hawaii then. So let's bring the data here. I want to leave on that Sunday. Show me the flights. And it thinks, and there's the flights. Because Delta and United and Air Alaska and Air Hawaii are all participating in this data market. They've all said, Outlook, if you find people who want to travel, we want to give them data. And that's what the data looks like in Outlook. And that's a little bit better than a browser, isn't it? You can see the red eye is obvious. You're not going to book an 11 p.m. flight thinking you're booking an 11 a.m. flight when it appears like that. You see the double layover. You see the long layover. You see the nonstop flight. I'll have the nonstop flight, please. I'm from Seattle. Get my ass out of here. I want some sun. Hey, that's no fair. It was sunny in Seattle when I left. What the hell's going on down here? Oh, it's winter, isn't it? So there it is. Now, another data economy, because this is a strong intent. There's a family here, mom, dad, kids, all wanting to go to Hawaii. They've just booked a flight. They're going to need a place to stay. So all the hotels in Hawaii that participate in this data market can compete for them. See, that's how data economies work. It's not my job as the person who needs the value to go out and say, oh, who's going to give me the best deal? Oh, let's go to Expedia, let's go to Orbitz, let's go directly to the airline flight. And they all forget, right? I just told you I wanted to leave on this day, and now I've gone to a different site, and you've forgotten it already. They come to you. There's no ads here. There's value. The one that goes on top in a data economy is the one that provides the biggest discount, the one that provides the best value, because the machines are paying attention. The machines know if when people check out early. They know when people are unhappy. They know when people are happy, and they talk to each other. This is the best deal for that day for a family of 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever. You can page through it. You don't have to take the first ones. Then you select one, and you book it, and that's it. It's done. You don't have to, the web knows how to book a hotel. Apps know how to book a hotel. Why can't a calendar figure it out? Of course it can. And then there's activities. They're going to need to eat. They're going to need to play. They're going to rent snorkeling equipment. They're going to want to hike in the mountains and get maps to trails. They're going to want to do all of these things. Well, there it is. Go on, poke around, play around. And with this sort of economy, we're not limited to just a browser window with all that text. This is literally the web. These Outlook plugins are HTML5, JavaScript. It's the web. It's just brought to you instead of you going to it. So you pick them, pull them to your calendar, and you're done. You have a record of your entire vacation right there in your calendar where you want it. Now, this isn't just about Microsoft. Any company can do this because this is just data. Bing has it in its index. There's APIs to get to this stuff. So if you were Twitter, what might you do? How might you build a data economy around an app like Twitter? Well, here's how it would look. Here's what I built. Because I sent this tweet last winter, and the response pissed me off so bad I started writing code. I got to get pretty angry to write code. Either that or it has to involve a hot tub. So I sent this tweet, traveling to Boston and New York City, any locals who can hook me up with some live music recommendations. Now, I've got a few followers on Twitter, but how many of those followers, because that's what Twitter does, sends it to your followers. How many of my followers live in Boston or New York, know something about the live music scene, and happen to see this tweet in that 2-minute window of it going by with all the other noise on Twitter? I can tell you exactly how many. 0. 2 people favorited it. Why do you favorite something like this? Are you happy that I'm lost in New York trying to find live music? This pleasures you in some way? And so it pissed me off. So I went to Bing because Bing has ingested all of Twitter. And I did a search. So I don't want this to go to the people who follow me. They're clearly unhelpful. By the way, you New Zealanders really hooked me up. I tweeted live beer recommendations. I didn't have to write any code for that. I mean, good beer recommendations. You guys like your beer. I like this country. So I tweeted, call off the invasion. They actually have good beer. And so I wrote a little code. First thing I did is I looked up all the accounts that had addresses in Boston or New York, and the words venue, live music, right? 8, 9 lines of code, got them all. About 1,500 of them. And then I wrote a little script to send that tweet to all 1,500. And then I sat back and I thought, oh, let's see what happens. And then nothing happened. And I thought, damn it, that always happens when I write code. I screwed up. I wonder what servers in the data centers are screaming right now. That asshole did it again. But I forgot to press F5. So I pressed F5, refreshed my browser, and got this. Within 1 minute, I got like 19 replies. The social media people were there looking for that, right? That's what they do. And the first one said, the Hyatt Regency Boston says, oh, you need to go to the Boston Beehive and listen to jazz music. And I said, bleh. And then Boston Symphony says, oh, come and listen to some classical music. And I mean, marijuana hasn't been legal long enough for me to really dig classical music, but I'm thinking in the future, right? Not quite yet. And then the Orpheum Theater's got the Foals and Cage the Elephant playing while I was there. Woohoo! Most valuable code I've ever written. I went to those concerts and they were awesome. Right? This is how it should work. This is how the data economy works. It's not a popularity contest. Oh, who's following me? Does this screen make my ass look big? Hey, you ain't supposed to move it down there. That was a rhetorical question. It did kind of look big, didn't it? I should have never said that. It goes to the people who can help. That's what the data economy is about. Connecting those who need to those who have. Those who consume to those who produce. And it's going to be written around, by the way, I plugged Twitter into Bing's data feed as well, so I can do the same thing here that I could do in Outlook. I can book tickets, I can get seats, I can find places to park, I can figure out bus routes, all from the comfort of Twitter. This is how the data economy works. It's about smarter devices. It's about apps that are no longer nouns. They're verbs. They're action. It's about the Internet of Things and machines taking care of business for themselves. My refrigerator should know, yeah, that nasty thing in the back has been there for a while. It knows it. It's going to be able to do something about it. My hot tub is going to be able to maintain itself. My toaster is going to be able to print its own parts, right? The Internet of Things takes, look, we have been caring for our devices for a long time. And all the web has done is make it a little bit easier for us to do all the work on behalf of our devices. What the Internet of Things does, and what the maker community does, is it lets those devices take care of themselves to free us up, because this is the real gift of the data economy. What is the one thing that all of us need more of? The one thing that's so hard to find. The one thing that we can never get enough of. Time. And by implementing a data economy, economies around our apps, economies around our devices, we can buy ourselves the most precious gift that we could ever give ourselves. More time to watch rugby and drink good New Zealand beer. And I know for a fact there's a bunch of good New Zealand beer that way. Join me for one. Thank you.